Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and look at this, I'm back doing some video game content that's not just a podcast. Told you guys I'm going to try and get it out here and there when I can. So you, dear listener, have decided to listen to another Snap Judgment review for whatever reason, and yeah, let's go into what that is. I call it a Snap Judgment review because I only get about 5 to 10 hours with the game. Just trying to give you an idea whether you're going to enjoy it right off the bat or not. Because of that, and the fact that I think all video games are one of the most subjective forms of art, I won't be giving you a score to this review. Instead, I'll be telling you the overview of what the game is, and then I'll be listing the pros and the cons of the game from my point of view, which all reviews are. And then I'll be telling you whether I will be sticking with this game outside the purposes of this review. So, with that said, let's get into it. Alright, so today I am reviewing Eternal Strands. So, this is an interesting game. It's from some old Mass Effect BioWare developers, and it's very weird. I've seen a lot of reviews on this thing, and it's kind of hailed as a mix between Shadow of the Colossus and maybe some like Monster Hunter in there. That's not the vibe I got at all. I got much more a Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom sort of vibe. But let's get into it. Let's talk about what it is. In this game, you play a character named Bryn. You do not get to create a character in any way, shape, or form. This character is a weaver. I believe that's what it was called. Basically, you have the ability to use magic, cast magic. But they have been outcast from society due to some catastrophe that happened years ago. And you are traveling with a whole group of weavers who are trying to figure out what that catastrophe was. Hijinks ensue. It's a fantasy world, obviously, and what the kind of game loop here is you are at a camp with all your other weaver friends, each with very interesting and different personalities and characters. Also, a lot of them have like different stores, shops, spells you could set up, resources you can gather and add, upgrades you could do, all that fun stuff. So you'll spend time talking to them, upgrading stuff, and then going out in the field and collecting raw materials for further upgrades or to complete quests, as well as hunting big monsters, fighting monsters, and just kind of unraveling the secrets of this world. That being said, the fighting in this game is a mixture of close combat with swords and bows and mixed with the magical spells you get. You start off with just a normal telekinesis spell, which allows you to move objects around, and you can move quite a few of objects, even the enemies that you have, that you will end up facing. Then you get an ice spell, which freezes land and other things around you, and then from there you get more stuff. All of that being said, there's some interesting mechanics in the spell stuff because there's actual thermodynamics at play here. You actually have kind of like you can use ice to put out fire and even make a bridge to walk across the fire. Vice versa, you can throw out some fire and it will burn. It will catch to things that are flammable and slowly spread around you, damaging things in the area. The environment is very, very manipulatable and very interactive. Your weapons are limited. You can have a sword and shield, a greatsword, or a bow and arrow, and that's it. And then those items you upgrade through collecting raw materials. You also have armors, different armors you can put on Bryn from everything, and you can mix and match your build. In very creative, interesting ways. One of the things about the crafting system that's very interesting is the fact that you can choose to upgrade just one piece of the artifacts that you already have, which will change the properties of the armor or the weapon or whatever, which I found very cool and intricate so that you can really even change the build of each specific item itself. Then, of course, we come to the set piece of the game, which are these battles with these huge, massive creatures. Not quite as big as Shadows of the Colossus, but there is a fair amount of climbing on them. And there's also some really interesting trickery here. One of the cool things about the physics that I said before is it applies here as well. So, like, you can freeze a bad guy's feet, one of the massive bad guys' feet, to the ground so that they can't move, or maybe freeze their hand to their chest so that you can get in a couple of extra hits. There's all sorts of weird stuff like this. Like a dragon might be flying around you. You can freeze its wings. It'll fall to the ground, take a little fall damage. There's a lot of these kinds of, like, how am I going to use this mechanic to make things interesting, which again is the reason it brings me back to the Breath of the Wild, the Tears of the Kingdom connection. I can't help but feel like this game is kind of trying to emulate that. Obviously, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, much more about collecting weapons that are breakable than upgrading stuff. There isn't as much of the social aspect there. But the actual way you interact with the environment is very similar. It's about taking the stuff you have and just making something very creative and interesting with it, and using it in creating in interesting ways. So like I said, taking an enemy, a smaller enemy, and hurling him off a cliff instead of fighting him, or throwing a boulder into them. There's a lot of cool problem-solving mechanics here that make it very interesting. So let's get to the pros and cons of this thing, because that's really it. Unless I'm going to, break up story stuff, which I don't want to do, that's really all there is to it. So, right off the bat, I always love to go positive first. So let's do pros, and that is the elemental interactions has to be front and center. Not even just the elemental interactions, but the way that you kind of interact with the world. Again, this world is very interactable. Almost everything you see isn't just scenery. It can be burned or frozen. It can be picked up and used. It can be broken. It can be something for you. And it's one of those interesting things, kind of in that Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom way, that just gives you that feeling of freedom that every gamer loves to feel. And in this case, they really accomplished what they were trying to go for. There's a lot of other things that I find irritating about this game. We're going to get into cons, but in the facts of the way the spells are used and the way the scenery interacts with the character and the world interacts with the character, second to none. My next pro is the crafting system. Sorry about all these notifications, guys. I can't seem to get this so that we're not getting bugged by them. The crafting system is great in this. I think it's really interesting, and it is innovating on a crafting system. Personally, of all the things about this game that I liked and disliked in my time with it, there is nothing in this game that makes me more excited than this crafting system. Again, you can take, like, say you have a sword, and that sword is made with, steel, 2 steel and 4 wood and 1 cloth, right? And you can take the wood and then you can exchange the wood with, raw oak. Well, that'll change the properties of the sword. Just the one ingredient will. Let alone, then you can also build completely new weapons and items from that stuff. Of course, you're let down by the lack of weapon variety, which we'll talk about in the cons, but the actual crafting system itself, one of the things else that I found was really cool is when I added red cotton to my shield to give it some property. I can't remember the statistical value, but it actually changed the color of the shield. So these property effects can actually change the actual physical appearance effects of the sword just from one ingredient. I think that's so cool. I don't think I've ever seen another game do something like that, except maybe Biomutant. Really creative, really interesting crafting system. I think it's one of the best parts about this game. It brings me to my last pro, which is the voice work in this game is absolutely stellar. Not just from the main character, but all the side characters. And we're going to talk about some of the conversations and what I didn't like about them. It is not the voice work. The voice work kept me in this game a lot longer than maybe even I wanted to be in this game. So just want to throw that out to everybody. So that brings us to the cons. We've got a few cons here. First of all, no character creation. Look, I understand this is a narrative game. down to its core, it is a game about one character interacting with other characters. I'm gonna be honest though. I have this thing, and this just might be my taste. So this might be one of those cons that you have to chalk up to taste. But I like to create characters. I like to create all sorts of different characters, and especially in a game like this, I feel like it could have been helped by a character creator, not necessarily hindered by it. Bryn is fine. I don't necessarily have a problem with Bryn, and you do get to decide how she talks and how she interacts with the world around her, which gives you some license over her personality in the game. But overall, those changes, I don't think the game would suffer from the changes from just having a character that you created yourself. I would love to create a character in this game, and I think it would have been a little bit better for me personally. My next issue, and again, this may be personal preference, this may be nitpicking, so you guys will have to tell me, is no personal impact. And what I mean by the no personal impact, so every one of these characters at your camp, they usually have a use of some sort, from upgrading something on your person or a weapon or allowing you to buy items or something. They also, you could just talk to them. The voice work on all of them is stellar. However, the conversations don't get you anything other than backstory and lore. Look, I like backstory and lore as much as the next guy, but I find it much more interesting in games when the personal conversation is a game upon itself. You are rewarded for those interactions. You are rewarded for those personal times. So like, and I know a lot of people are like, Zach, he's always about the romance in games. He always wants a romance system. And I do. I like the romance system. But one of the reasons I like a romance system is it keeps the gamification going. I am rewarded for going out and forging personal relationships with the characters outside of combat. This game doesn't do that. So like, unless you really want to learn the lore of these characters, you don't get any reward for having these long-winded conversations with these very interesting characters. I would have much rather, even if it's not a romance system, some sort of social system that maybe or changes the ending, maybe changes some of the different outcomes, or even just gets you closer to them and gets you certain different other rewards. Befriending others and maybe having others not like you or trust you more. There's a lot of opportunity here in this camp that I feel like was missed, especially with the social interaction. I would love to spend time with all of these characters, but there's just no reward for it. And I don't know. I guess that's a little nitpicky because the reward, I guess, should be in the spending time for them. But at the same time, we're playing a video game, and I like to be rewarded for my time. I like to see the things that I do in a game change that game, maybe influence its outcome or its thing. If I spend a lot of time talking to dude A or lady A, I want that to impact my storyline in some way other than just me learning who they are as a person. So the no personal impact, I would have liked, I feel like there's a real missed opportunity at this camp that really took away from my enjoyment, which was, there's just no reason to have conversations with any of these people other than to buy stuff from them, and I don't like that. My last con is the weapons. They're, like, first of all, the close combat is not the best. I'm sorry, and I've only played it for 5 hours, so maybe it opens up later. But I have to say that, like, it is very basic and lukewarm fun at its best. You're going to spend most of your time trying to find ways to use your magic spells to make everything happen. But there's also only 3 weapons to choose from: a bow and arrow, a sword and a shield, and then later you get like a greatsword type weapon, which I didn't even get to. I would have liked some daggers or a spear or something. There seems to be almost no thought put into the close combat fighting other than you can parry, you have a combo, you can also shoot a bow and arrow, and stats go up good. And I hate that. You have all this thought put into the magical spells and the way magic works and the way the magic works with the scenery. Why can't we get a little of that on the weapons, on the close combat? Give us some more build options too for people who maybe are a little bit more into the close combat fighting or a reason to do it. I found the only reason to use my sword was after I immobilized or froze an enemy with a magical spell. There was no reason to just do weapon fighting, and maybe that's the point, but like for me, the weapon fighting, the close combat weapon stuff, or even the range stuff just felt like an afterthought, and I don't like that. So finally, whether or not I'm going to stick with it. Unfortunately, I am not going to stick with it. I don't think this is necessarily a negative review. I would say lukewarm. It's just for me, at this stage in my life, I am much more into experiences that I can kind of craft as I go along. Character creation, making the world different as I play. Role play experiences in a game. Those are the kind of things that really excite me. This is not that. This is very much a narrative story with an open world that you quest in for that narrative story. And that was kind of a bummer for me. So for me, this is a no. I think there are a lot of people out there who are going to enjoy this quite a bit. And like I said, there is fantastic interaction with the spells. There's fantastic interaction with... There's fantastic set-piece fights with these big creatures that is really cool to be a part of. But overall, it's just not for me. So, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Tell me in the comments below. I am going to do another review, probably coming out the day after this one, and I'm really excited about that one. It's Citizen Sleeper 2, and then we'll probably take a little time before I can get to it again, but, you guys can always reach us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH. You can reach us on X at OldManGaming9. You can also reach us on Blue Sky. You just have to search up Axiom Games LLC or Old Man Gaming, and then as long as you guys keep watching and listening, we'll keep making them. See you guys next time.